All right, let's get ready for a deep dive today because we're exploring the world of Mike Mentzer.
Oh, Mentzer.
A true legend,
Yeah.
in bodybuilding.
Big fella.
And you might be thinking another bodybuilding episode.
Right.
But trust me,
Yeah,
this one goes way beyond just sets and reps.
absolutely.
We're going to uncover how Mentzer saw bodybuilding as art, as science, even as a philosophy.
Oh, wow.
And to help us break this down,
Yeah.
we're going to be using excerpts from the book, The Wisdom of Mike Mentzer, The Art, Science, and Philosophy by John Little and Joanne Sharkey.
What's fascinating about Mentzer is that he approached bodybuilding with this incredible blend of intellectual curiosity and raw passion.
Right.
He wasn't just about building muscle.
Yeah.
He was constantly questioning, analyzing, refining his understanding of the human body and the principles of growth.
And this all started pretty really for him, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the book talks about how he was drawn to both physical and intellectual pursuits from a young age.
Absolutely.
Right?
Born in Pennsylvania, Mentzer found himself training at the legendary York Barbell Club.
Wow.
Can you imagine being surrounded by giants? Like Bob Hoffman, the Olympic weightlifting coach, and John Grimmick, a Mr. Universe winner?
Yeah.
It was a breeding ground for strength and innovation.
That's like stepping back in time to a golden age of bodybuilding.
Totally.
But it wasn't just the iron that shaped his thinking, was it?
No.
He also delved into medicine and psychology,
Yeah.
which adds a whole other dimension
It does.
to his approach.
That's right. Mentzer wasn't just a gym rat.
Right.
He was a student of the human body in a holistic sense.
Bad.
His studies gave him a deeper understanding of the physiological and psychological factors that influence muscle growth and performance.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the influence of Arthur Jones, the creator of Nautilus equipment.
Oh,
Jones was a huge proponent of high-intensity training,
right.
and his ideas profoundly shaped Mentzer's philosophy.
So it sounds like Mentzer was pulling from all these different sources to form his own unique perspective. It wasn't just about blindly following the crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was a critical thinker
Yeah.
who wasn't afraid to challenge conventional wisdom.
Mm.
And this is where his concept of bodybuilding as art really comes into focus.
Yeah, okay.
He believed that posing wasn't just about showing off muscles.
Right.
It was about expressing an ideal, conveying a sense of man the hero.
Okay, now that's intriguing.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't necessarily associate bodybuilding with art.
Right.
What did he mean by man the hero?
He was talking about embodying qualities like height, uplift nobility, grandeur, exaltation, and reverence. He even came up with the acronym HUNGER to represent these ideals.
Hunger.
Yeah.
I like that. It's not just about the physical. It's about striving for something more,
Exactly.
expressing an inner strength and aspiration.
Yeah,
Would you say that's a fair interpretation?
absolutely.
Okay.
Mentzer believed that bodybuilding could be a vehicle for self-improvement,
Right.
both physically and mentally.
Yeah.
He saw the pursuit of a perfect physique as a reflection of a deeper desire for excellence in all areas of life.
This reminds me of something else the book highlights.
Uh-huh.
The contrast between Mentzer's philosophy and that of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Ah, yes.
Talk about two titans clashing.
Yeah.
One focused on self-improvement and the other, at least initially, on winning at all costs.
It's a fascinating comparison that reveals a lot about their personalities and approaches to the sport. Mentzer championed rational self-interest and continuous self-improvement.
Right.
He believed in raising the overall standard, not just beating the competition.
But Arnold, as depicted in Pumping Iron, seemed to embrace a more cunning, even manipulative approach. The whole psychological warfare aspect of competition.
Right. There's that famous scene where Arnold admits to sabotaging a competitor.
Right.
Of course, he later clarified that some of that was played up for the cameras.
Yeah.
But the image stuck.
Yeah.
It created this perception of bodybuilding as a cutthroat world where anything goes.
So we have these two contrasting philosophies.
Yeah.
Mentzer, driven by self-improvement and a belief in elevating the sport.
Right.
And Arnold embodying a more aggressive, win-at-all-costs mentality.
Yes.
This begs the question, what does this say about bodybuilding itself? Can it be both a pursuit of personal excellence and a ruthless competition?
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
And I think Mentzer's life and career highlight that tension. He was fiercely competitive, but also deeply principled.
Right.
He believed that true success should never come at the expense of your integrity.
Yeah.
And this focus on character is a recurring theme throughout the book, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The book is filled with anecdotes that illustrate Mentzer's commitment to character.
Oh, yeah.
He helped Samir ban out with a cramp right before a competition, despite being rivals.
Wow.
He gave calf training tips to Frank Zane,
right,
another top competitor. And get this, he even supported the launch of John Little's book. Wow. Even though it meant creating competition for his own upcoming book.
He was the ultimate frenemy, as they say. Competitive, but always respectful.
Right.
And these actions speak volumes about his character.
Mm-hmm.
They challenge the notion that you have to be ruthless to succeed.
Yeah.
Suggesting that you can achieve greatness while upholding your values.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's inspiring, really.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if that win-at-all-costs mentality is truly necessary, even in a competitive field like bodybuilding.
Right.
Maybe there's a way to strive for excellence without sacrificing your integrity.
Yeah.
And speaking of integrity, this whole idea of character really comes into play when we look at the 1980 Mr. Olympia confrontation between Mentzer and Schwarzenegger.
Oh, yes.
It's almost a classic David versus Goliath scenario, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The book describes this intense encounter backstage where Arnold was allegedly dismissive of other competitors and trying to change the rules last minute.
Wow.
Mentzer stood up to him, refusing to be intimidated by Arnold's star power.
It's a pivotal moment that reveals a lot about both men.
Yes, it does.
Mentzer, even though he was facing a seemingly insurmountable opponent, had the courage to stand up for what he believed was right.
He did.
And this brings us to a particularly dramatic moment. Mentzer putting his finger in Arnold's face, and Arnold backing down, unable to meet his gaze.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a power move.
That's amazing.
What do you make of this incident?
It's a fascinating display of power dynamics and personality.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have Mentzer, the underdog, demonstrating unwavering integrity and a willingness to confront injustice.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you see Arnold, perhaps for the first time, appearing vulnerable and unsure of himself.
Wow.
It challenges the perception of Arnold as this invincible force, suggesting that even he had his weaknesses.
This deep dive is already proving to be more than just a bodybuilding story.
Yes.
It's a study in character competition and the courage to stand up for what you believe in.
It is.
And all of this is interwoven with Mentzer's unique approach to training, which he called heavy duty.
Heavy duty.
He was known for his incredibly scientific approach, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
Right.
Mentzer was a firm believer in the power of reason and applied that principle to his training methods. He viewed bodybuilding as a discipline rooted in physiology, not bro science or guesswork.
Okay.
He had a system, and it was built on some key principles.
Let's unpack those principles.
Yeah.
What were the pillars of Mentzer's heavy-duty system?
He emphasized several key principles, starting with identity.
Okay.
And this might sound a little philosophical,
right,
but it's actually very practical.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Okay.
Tell me more about this concept of identity and training.
It's about understanding the nature of muscle growth. You have to know what you're working with to train effectively.
Right.
You have to know what makes muscle grow, how it responds to stress, and what factors influence its development.
So it's about getting to know your muscles, their potential, and their limitations. It sounds like a very mindful approach.
Exactly.
Okay.
From there, it's all about intensity, which he saw as the primary driver of muscle growth. But, and this is crucial, it's not just about going hard all the time.
Right.
It's about balancing that intensity with duration and frequency to allow for recovery.
So it's about working smarter.
Yeah.
It's not just harder. Recognizing that rest and recovery are just as important as the training itself.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then there's specificity, making sure your training aligns with your goals, which in this case is building muscle size and strength. And of course, progression, constantly challenging your muscles to keep them adapting and growing.
It sounds like he was really ahead of his time with these ideas.
Yeah.
Especially the emphasis on recovery.
Yeah.
A lot of people still struggle with that concept today.
He was a pioneer in many ways.
Right.
And a key part of this was understanding your recovery ability. Mentzer believed that most bodybuilders, even today, overtrain, hindering their progress.
Really?
He suggested less frequent, more intense workouts, even advocating for training some body parts only once every 2 weeks.
Now, that's a bold claim.
It is.
Training some muscle groups just once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Most people think that's not nearly enough.
It goes against conventional wisdom, for sure.
Right.
But he had incredible results with clients who dramatically reduced their training volume.
Really?
The book talks about one client who gained 30 pounds of muscle in just 3 months,
Wow.
with workouts lasting only 2 to 4 minutes.
Wait, 2 to 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. Tell me more about how that's even possible.
It's one of the most intriguing aspects of Mentzer's approach, and it really challenges the modern fitness culture of more is always better.
Yeah.
He called this routine 2 sets once a week, and it was all about maximizing intensity and prioritizing recovery.
2 sets once a week. That sounds almost too good to be true. How can you possibly build muscle with such limited training volume?
That's the question everyone asks, and the answer lies in understanding the principles we just discussed: identity, intensity, and recovery. Mentzer believed that most people simply weren't training with enough intensity to stimulate maximum muscle growth, and they weren't giving their bodies enough time to recover and adapt.
So it's about pushing your limits in those 2 sets and then letting your body do its thing.
Exactly. He believed that a single truly intense set taken to complete muscular failure was enough to trigger the growth process. He argued that additional sets were not only unnecessary, but could actually be detrimental, leading to overtraining and hindering recovery.
Okay, I'm starting to see the logic here, but can you give me a practical example of what this 2 sets once a week routine might look like? What kind of exercises did he recommend?
He was a big advocate for compound movements, those that work multiple muscle groups at once. Think squats, deadlifts, dips, and rows. These exercises recruit a large amount of muscle mass, leading to a greater overall growth stimulus.
So it's about efficiency too, right? Getting the most bang for your buck with each exercise.
Exactly. He believed in working smarter, not just harder. For example, one of his routines consisted of just 2 workouts performed once a week. The first workout was deadlifts and dips, hitting the entire back, legs, and chest in just 2 exercises. The second workout was squats and lat pull-downs, again targeting major muscle groups with maximum efficiency.
Wow, that's incredibly minimalist, but I imagine those workouts were brutally intense if you're only doing 1 set to failure for each exercise.
Absolutely. It's not about racking up reps. It's about pushing yourself to the absolute limit with perfect form and maximizing the intensity of each contraction. You're essentially trying to make those 2 sets as challenging and productive as possible.
It's like he was flipping the script on traditional bodybuilding wisdom. Instead of spending hours in the gym, you're in and out with laser focus and maximum effort.
That's the Mentzer philosophy in a nutshell. He was all about questioning assumptions and finding the most effective path to muscle growth, even if it meant going against the grain.
Now, you mentioned earlier that Mentzer had some unique training techniques as well. Can you tell me more about those?
One of his most notable techniques was rest pause training, a method designed to take intensity to another level.
Rest pause training. That sounds interesting. How does it work?
Imagine you're doing bicep curls. You lift the heaviest weight you can handle for a single rep. Then you rest for just a few seconds, just enough to catch your breath, and then you do another rep with the same weight. You repeat this process for a few reps, each one being a maximal effort.
So you're basically pushing yourself to failure multiple times within a single set. That sounds incredibly challenging.
It is, and that's the point. Mentzer believed that this technique forces the muscles to work at a much higher level of intensity, leading to greater growth stimulation. He argued that it allowed you to tap into a reserve of strength that you wouldn't be able to access with traditional set and rep schemes.
This all sounds very intense, but didn't he also challenge some widely held beliefs about muscle growth? Didn't he have some controversial views about the pump, for example?
He did. He argued that the pump, while it might feel good, isn't a reliable indicator of muscle growth. You see, the pump is essentially a temporary increase in blood flow to the muscles, which makes them feel swollen and engorged.
So it's more of a sensation than a direct measure of muscle growth.
Exactly. You can get a pump from doing light weights for high reps, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're stimulating the kind of muscle damage and protein synthesis needed for significant growth.
Interesting. So according to Mentzer, it's not about chasing the pump. It's about pushing your limits with heavy weight and intense contractions, even if you don't get that pumped up feeling.
Precisely. He was all about focusing on the factors that truly drive muscle growth, and he wasn't afraid to debunk myths or challenge popular opinions. Now, this emphasis on intensity and recovery also extended to his views on the frequency of training. He was very critical of the common 96-hour rule for muscle recovery.
The 96-hour rule, I've heard that before. That's the idea that you need to wait at least 96 hours or 4 days before training the same muscle group again, right?
That's right. But Mentzer argued that it could take weeks or even months for full recuperation after a truly intense workout. He pointed to research indicating that even a single intense workout could significantly deplete the body's resources and impair strength for a surprisingly long period.
Months. That's a lot longer than most people would think. I'm
Yeah.
starting to see why he advocated for less frequent training.
He believed that rest and recovery were just as important, if not more so, than the training itself. He argued that many people were simply not giving their bodies enough time to adapt and rebuild after intense workouts.
This connects back to what we were discussing earlier about his overall philosophy of rationality and self-awareness. It's about listening to your body and understanding its needs.
Exactly. It's a very mindful approach to training. Now, all of this might sound a bit overwhelming, especially if you're used to a more traditional training approach. But I think it's important to remember that Mentzer believed in individualization. What worked best for him might not be ideal for everyone.
So how did he approach this idea of individualization? Did he have any specific recommendations for people who wanted to incorporate his ideas into their training?
He did. He believed in experimenting, tracking your progress, and adjusting your training based on your unique needs and responses. But he also outlined some of his most productive routines in the book, including his personal 4-day split.
A 4-day split. That sounds a bit more manageable than training everything once a week. Tell me more about how the split worked.
He arrived at this split after years of observation and experimentation, carefully analyzing how his body responded to different training frequencies and volumes. It involved training 2 days on 1 day off and then repeating the cycle.
And what kind of exercises did he include in this routine? Was he still focusing on those heavy compound movements?
Absolutely. He was a big proponent of exercises like squats, deadlifts, dips, bench presses, and rows. He also emphasized the importance of focusing on intensity over volume. So even with a 4-day split, he was still keeping his workouts relatively short and focused. He believed that you could get a highly effective workout in as little as 30 minutes if you trained with sufficient intensity.
It's all about quality over quantity, right? Making every set and rep count.
Exactly. He believed that too much volume could lead to diminishing returns and hinder recovery. It's better to do a few sets with maximum effort than to drag out a workout with endless sets of moderate intensity.
This is all making a lot of sense, but I have to wonder, with such radical ideas, what kind of legacy did Mentzer leave behind? Did his influence extend beyond his time in the spotlight?
Even though he passed away in 2001, his ideas continue to influence bodybuilding and fitness today. His focus on rationality, intensity, and individual potential challenges, conventional wisdom, and encourages critical thinking. He really shook up the fitness world and made people rethink their approach to training.
It's inspiring to see someone so passionate about their craft and so willing to challenge the status quo. He wasn't just a bodybuilder. He was a thinker, a philosopher, and someone who genuinely wanted to help people reach their full potential.
And that's what makes his story so compelling. It's about so much more than just building muscle. It's about personal growth, self-discovery, and living a life guided by reason and integrity. But are his ideas still relevant in today's fitness world?
That's a great question. There's so much information out there now, so many different training methods and philosophies. Do you think Mentzer's approach still holds up in the face of all this new research and technology?
I think his ideas are more relevant than ever. In a world saturated with information overload and quick fixes, Mentzer's emphasis on critical thinking, self-awareness, and individualization is a refreshing antidote.
It's about cutting through the noise and finding what truly works for you, not blindly following the latest trends or fads.
Exactly. And that's something we can all apply to any area of our lives, not just fitness. Now, this deep dive has been a real eye-opener. We've covered a lot of ground today, from Mentzer's unique training philosophy to his intriguing insights on character and self-improvement. It's been a fascinating exploration of a truly remarkable figure in bodybuilding history.
And before we wrap up, there's one more thing I want to touch on. The book mentions a particularly interesting aspect of Mentzer's training that we haven't discussed yet. He actually experimented with training some body parts with higher reps than others.
Yes, he found that the legs, in particular, responded better to higher reps in the range of 12 to 20. This was a bit of a departure from his usual emphasis on low reps and maximum intensity.
That's interesting. Why was that? Did he have a specific reason for using higher reps for legs?
He believed it had to do with the neurological efficiency of different muscle groups. He pointed to research indicating that the legs have a lower neurological efficiency compared to the upper body.
Okay, I'm not sure I follow. What does that mean in practical terms?
It means that even during a maximal contraction, the legs aren't activating as many muscle fibers as, say, the biceps or triceps. So to stimulate more muscle growth in the legs, he found that higher reps were needed to recruit a greater percentage of those muscle fibers. He was essentially trying to compensate for this lower neurological efficiency by increasing the volume for leg training.
That makes sense. It's like he was tailoring his training approach to the specific needs of each muscle group.
Exactly. It's another example of his commitment to individualization and his deep understanding of exercise science. He wasn't just blindly applying a one-size-fits-all approach. He was constantly adapting and refining his methods based on observation and research.
Now, I'm curious, did he advocate for doing super high reps like 50 or 100 for legs? Or was there an upper limit to his rep range?
That's a great question, and it actually highlights an important distinction in Mentzer's approach. While he believed in higher reps for legs, he still emphasized the importance of staying within the anaerobic training zone. Remember, he was all about intensity.
Right, so what does that mean in practical terms when it comes to rep ranges for legs?
It means keeping your sets relatively short and intense, typically lasting no more than 60 to 90s. If you go beyond that, you start tapping into the aerobic energy system, which is more about endurance than building muscle size and strength. He wanted to make sure those leg workouts were still challenging and stimulating muscle growth, not just building cardiovascular endurance.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where you're maximizing muscle fiber recruitment while still maintaining the intensity needed for growth, not just mindlessly doing reps for the sake of it.
Precisely. And again, this highlights the importance of self-awareness and understanding your body's response to training. It's about experimenting, paying attention to how your muscles feel, and adjusting your approach accordingly.
It's about working smarter, not just harder, a theme that seems to run throughout Mentzer's entire training philosophy.
Absolutely. Now, we've talked extensively about Mentzer's training methods and his views on intensity, but there's another crucial piece of the puzzle that we haven't addressed yet: nutrition. What did this bodybuilding legend eat to fuel his workouts and support his physique?
That's a great question, especially with all the different diet trends out there today.
Yeah.
What did a bodybuilding legend like Mentzer eat? Did he follow a strict diet plan?
Well, one thing that stands out is that he didn't demonize carbohydrates or sugar, which might surprise some people given the current low-carb craze.
Really? So he wasn't all about protein shakes and chicken breasts. That's quite a departure from what we often hear in the fitness world.
That's an excellent question, and it's where Mentzer's intellectual depth really shines through. You see, he believed that mental strength was just as crucial as physical strength, and he grew heavily from Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism to cultivate his mental game.
Objectivism. Now, that's a philosophy I've heard mentioned before, but I'll admit I don't fully grasp its core principles. How did Mentzer connect this philosophy to his bodybuilding mindset?
At its core, objectivism emphasizes reason, individual achievement, and the pursuit of rational self-interest. For Mentzer, this meant taking complete responsibility for your life, your choices, and your outcomes. He saw this as the foundation for achieving success in any area, especially bodybuilding, which demands incredible discipline and dedication.
So it's about being in control of your thoughts, your actions, and ultimately your destiny, not letting external factors dictate your success or failure.
Precisely. He believed that many people fall into the trap of blaming circumstances or other people for their lack of progress. Mentzer's philosophy was about taking ownership, focusing on what you can control, and relentlessly pursuing your goals. And that meant rejecting irrational fears, doubts, and negative self-talk. He saw these mental obstacles as just as debilitating as any physical limitation.
It's like he was applying a philosophical framework to the mental game of bodybuilding. He wasn't just training his body, he was training his mind to be an unshakable force.
Exactly. He understood the power of the mind to influence performance. He believed that if you allow doubts and negativity to creep in, it can sabotage your efforts, no matter how hard you train physically. He cultivated a mindset of confidence, self-belief, and unwavering focus on his goals.
That sounds incredibly empowering, but how did he put this into practice, especially when facing the immense pressure of competition? Did he have any specific techniques to strengthen his mental game?
He did. He was a big believer in visualization, vividly imagining himself succeeding on stage, hitting perfect poses, and feeling the energy of the crowd. He believed that mentally rehearsing these scenarios helped program his mind for success. He also emphasized the power of positive affirmations, consciously replacing negative thoughts with empowering statements about his abilities and potential.
It's about rewiring your brain for success, training your mind to focus on the positive and eliminate self-doubt. It sounds like a form of mental conditioning, almost like practicing for a big game or a performance.
Exactly. And he believed that this mental discipline was essential for overcoming the inevitable challenges and setbacks that come with any competitive pursuit. Bodybuilding, like any sport, has its ups and downs.
Yeah.
Injuries, plateaus, tough competition. You have to be mentally prepared to handle those obstacles without losing sight of your goals.
It's about building resilience and developing an unshakable belief in yourself. Not letting setbacks define you, but using them as fuel to come back stronger.
That's the key takeaway.
Hmm.
And here's where his emphasis on character comes full circle. He believed that developing qualities like honesty, integrity, and discipline wasn't just about being a good person, it was about building the mental fortitude needed to achieve greatness. He saw those character traits as the foundation for mental strength.
It's like those character traits create a solid foundation for mental toughness. Honesty with yourself about your weaknesses, the discipline to push through challenges, the integrity to stay true to your goals even when things get tough. It all ties together.
Precisely. And this extended to how he approached competition. He didn't see it as a battle against other individuals. He saw it as a challenge against himself, a test of his dedication, his preparation, and his will to succeed. He was driven to push his limits and strive for excellence, but ultimately he was competing against his own potential.
So it wasn't about beating others, it was about being the best version of himself. About proving to himself that he was capable of achieving what he set out to do.
Exactly. And that meant focusing on his own performance, not getting caught up in comparisons or rivalries. He believed that true success came from within, from the satisfaction of knowing you'd given your all and achieved your full potential. The external validation, the trophies, the recognition, those were secondary to the internal sense of accomplishment.
That's a powerful perspective. It's about finding fulfillment in the journey, not just the outcome. Striving for excellence because you want to be the best you can be, not because you want to be better than everyone else.
Well said. And it's a reminder that the mental game is just as important as the physical game, whether you're a bodybuilder, an athlete, or simply someone striving to achieve your goals. Your mindset can make or break you, and cultivating mental strength is just as crucial as developing physical strength.
This deep dive into the mind of Mike Mentzer has been truly enlightening. We've explored his unique training philosophy, his unwavering belief in the power of character, and his profound insights on the mental game. It's clear that he was much more than just a muscular physique. He was a depth thinker, a philosopher in his own right, and someone who approached life with incredible intention and purpose.
It's been a fascinating journey into the world of a bodybuilding legend who saw the sport as a path to both physical and intellectual excellence. He challenged conventional wisdom, pushed the boundaries of human potential, and left behind a legacy that continues to inspire and provoke.
And his story reminds us that true success is not just about building a better body. It's about building a better self. It's about cultivating mental strength, embracing personal responsibility, and striving for excellence in all areas of our lives.
Well said. And with that thought, we'll leave you to ponder the wisdom of Mike Mentzer and consider how you can apply his principles to your own pursuits, whether in the gym, in your career, or in life itself. What areas of your life could benefit from a little more heavy-duty thinking?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Mike Mentzer. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing your limits both physically and mentally.